Cowboys Report coming at you guys from Cabo. We could not do a live show for the Cowboys-Cardinals game, but I took time out of my vacation, to the dismay of my wife, to do a quick video recap, news, rumor style in this one. The Cowboys lost against the Cardinals. Not that the win or loss result really matters too much in this one. It's the preseason after all. Frankly, I'm most upset about how long the final couple of minutes actually took between the timeouts and then Mike McCarthy trying to ice kicker in a meaningless preseason game. Is what it is. I thought the Cowboys overall played a little bit better than they did against the Pittsburgh. So I think the offensive line in particular at least looked a little bit better. Most of the tackles, we'll get to Ty and Secchi later on in this one. It was fine, nothing special. It's the preseason, doesn't really matter that much. Always nice to see a win. Felt like that was one they could have won, but oh well. So before I go too far in depth here, do me a favor, make sure you guys are subscribed because I took the time out of my vacation to get this video done for you. So help us out, more views, more subscribers, all that good stuff. Hit that big red button right now. All right, first up, the injury side, because there's a lot of that, unfortunately, for the Cowboys. Let's go with Neville Gallimore, Gallimore to start here. Left elbow hyperextension. Doesn't sound great for Gallimore, although I thought it looked a lot worse than it actually might end up being. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out, at least as I sit here filming this. Again, looks a little bit different because it's in Cabo and everyone else at Chat Sports is asleep at this point. Not a good injury. The defensive line is not very deep as it is right now. I did see a couple of flashes from Quinton Bahana, but again, as we film this, we know it's a hyperextension. Don't know much more beyond that side of it for the injury stuff for Neville Gallimore. Hopefully it's not a long injury, as there were several in this one, but the Gallimore one is certainly the most impactful and concerning for me. Hopefully it's not too long of an injury, but I don't know if he's going to be good to go for week one. All right, next up is Sean McEwen, who was playing very well this camp and preseason and kind of emerged as the, I'd argue, if not favorite, the obvious, potentially, tight end number 3. He left the game with a right ankle injury. I don't have much more beyond that. He walked off the field in the locker room with some assistance. Hopefully it's more of just a roll or a light sprain, kind of like Dalton Schultz. If not, that's going to make things a bit tricky come roster cut down time in a couple weeks for the Cowboys. Next up is Ty and Secchi, the tackle, who a couple rough reps early on. I actually think played a little bit better as the game went along, but then he left the game with a right knee injury. He did not return. There's been reports from the Dallas Morning News that Secchi's been battling knee discomfort throughout the week. That is a pretty significant red flag. Obviously, Josh Ball has been banged up as well. I don't love Terrence Steele or Brandon Knight in there. I mean, as you saw against the Cardinals, it's not like there's great offensive line play in general. They had some pretty big issues as well. We'll get to the positive side of that for the Cowboys here in a little bit. That one will also be worth monitoring. All right, 2 more. These ones not as impactful here. Anthony Hines left the game in the third quarter, elbow injury. Again, no real details on that one, but it shouldn't be a long-term type of thing for the Cowboys and for the linebacker. Or at least if it is, it's not a big deal because he wasn't going to make the team anyway. Malik Turner then also left the game after an attempted red zone or end zone catch, I should say. Foot/ankle, again, severity not known. He was questionable to return. The other 4 guys had all been declared out, so that makes me think it's a little bit less of a problem for Malik Turner. I meant to ask this earlier, but I'm doing it live, so we'll get to it now. Grade the Cowboys' performance for me against the Cardinals. A, B, C, D, or F. Don't factor in the injury stuff, but it's just the preseason, so get your votes in for me right now. A couple other news and notes I want to hit here. I'll start with a negative one here. The Connor Williams at center experience needs to end. He is not the guy at that position. There were multiple bad snaps again in this one. And on one hand, to be fair to Connor, he's been playing center for like 3 weeks in camp/mini camp, so there's not a lot of reps there. But this is not going to work. Connor Williams cannot be your starting center. He's fine as your left guard, but if you're trying to make him into your center, it's just not going to work. I'm very confused why the Cowboys are trying to give so many Connor Williams center reps. I get it. You want to have some backup depth there. You didn't bring in anybody the entire offseason outside of a UDFA and Jabril Jones playing guard for you, and Matt Farniok, who's a late round seventh round pick from Nebraska, who's maybe a guard, maybe a center. He's not great either. I'm a little confused as to why you haven't given Connor McGovern the chance since he played some center at Penn State. Very confusing to me. I still think Tyler Biadasz ends up being the center, but they did not start him in this one. It was McGovern, Williams, and then Brandon Knight at right guard, who's not very good, has really struggled the past, I'll call it, almost 9 months, kind of the back half of last year. He didn't play very well. So that interior offensive line depth, major problem, at least for me right now, for the Cowboys. All right, positive thing here. I was very impressed, not just by Bradley and I, who made a couple nice hurries, and even though there weren't many big splash plays in the stat books, but Dorance Armstrong, I thought played great in this one. This was, I think, maybe the best we've seen out of Dorance Armstrong preseason and certainly regular season in his NFL career. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, Yes, it was coming against third and second and fourth string offensive tackles. All you can do is beat the man in front of you. And I thought Dorance Armstrong was fantastic in this one. You guys know how I feel about Dorance Armstrong. Don't love him, but I thought that was a very strong performance and one he needs as he fights to make the 53-man roster. So what do you guys think? Who was the biggest winner from this game for you? We'll keep it positive because I got some more negatives to get to later on. Who was your biggest winner? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. I did want to briefly mention the Dak Prescott update because, well, I haven't done many actual live videos for you guys in a while. The reaction to the second, which I think should probably be termed another, that's beside the point, MRI, is a bit overblown. If the Cowboys were actually concerned about Dak Prescott's shoulder in terms of it not being healed or not being on the right path or whatever, why would they be letting him play pitch and catch right now? They would not be. The MRI is the next step to getting him fully cleared back to practice, maybe once they're back in Dallas. I still want to see him, even though it does risk the injury, so I get if that's your main concern there. If you don't want that to happen, I get it. But I do want to see him get a series or two against the Texans. I think in reality, this Cowboys team is going to start slow. It's not the end of the world. It's a very good football team against the Bucs in Week 1. Even though Dak's had plenty of reps throughout the mini-camp, training camp period at the backyard, it's still, I think, going to be a little bit rusty. I'm not that concerned. I think it's a good thing that Dak and Amari are playing some pitch and catch with Zeke out there before the game. I'm glad they traveled, blah, blah, blah. I would just like to see him at least a little bit, if only for my confidence and own mental health, to see Dak out there in the preseason. I did want to mention the backups here, rapid fire. I think it's pretty clear. Garrett Gilbert's your backup quarterback. Couple nice throws, unfortunately limited by some drops that also occurred in this one. He's nothing special. He's cheap, though, and he can get the job done for maybe a game or two. But as I've said before, if that goes down, the season is over. Cooper Rush, the stats look better for versus Garrett Gilbert in this one, but that guy just does not have the arm. I think it was to Reggie Davis, if I'm remembering correctly. Deep shot, and he only throws him like 5 yards. It's just, he doesn't have the arm to make it as anything more than, frankly, a camp arm in the NFL. Also, how about Danucci? Ben Danucci, a touchdown pass, sidearm style and everything. Did miss another throw before, but he still scored, and I'll count that as a W in the end for Ben Danucci. Let's go rapid fire now on the linebackers side. I do want to hit a couple of these players. Keanu Neal had the great forced fumble early on. Thought he played pretty well in a rather limited sample size. LVE made a nice tackle as well. But the guy who was around the football the most, I think is a good thing for the Cowboys, was Jabril Cox. He had 8 tackles in this one, 2 tackles for loss. A little tough to identify just how good he was in coverage, but that's an area of strength coming out of LSU, so I feel pretty good about that one. Overall, the linebacking depth looks really good for this Cowboys team. I wanted to hit the secondary here as well. Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown, they got the starts along with Trevon Diggs in this one. Obviously, Lewis in the slot, Anthony Brown on the outside. That's a good thing, I think, for the Cowboys in terms of giving the veterans out there. And they got the young guys more reps. Now, unfortunately, Kelvin Joseph did not fare well. Thought he played better in the first game, not nearly as good in this one. Got beat a couple times, had a bad penalty on third downs, had a better pass breakup later in the game. But once again, even though I don't think it was quite the same case for the Hall of Fame game, but for week 1 of the normal NFL preseason, I think Nahshon Wright outplayed him. And once again, I very much hope I am wrong about Nahshon Wright and his future with the Cowboys. But Joseph and Wright, look, they're young. They play a difficult position for first-year players. It's going to be a little bumpy throughout, but I'm not going to panic on it quite yet. Last question for you guys to answer for me in the comments. Even though we don't have the normal graphics, it's just me in the hotel room in Cabo. Who was the biggest loser of this game for you guys? Was it a quarterback? Was it one of the defenders? Was it us who stuck up so late to stick around watching the game even though they kept calling timeouts? That's kind of my vote. Either way, get your votes in the comments section right now. Finally, Hunter Nicewander was much better at kicker. I had to mention him a little bit since I kind of bodied him last week. 3 of 3, along of 48. I believe I'll double check that right now, or 38. Excuse me. Nicewander was better as a kicker. He's still not the guy you want out there, but going 3 of 3 did make me feel a little bit better about the position, especially with, I think, Greg Zuerlein getting closer to being cleared from the the active PUP list in the preseason. One side note, though, the red zone offense has to get better, and I think part of that is just the pieces you're dealing with in the preseason. You got backup quarterbacks, backup offensive linemen, but I want to see a little bit better play out of the red zone offense going forward, even just to score a couple more points than 16, even with one of them coming late in the game. I just want to see more success from that area. I put more of that on the players more so than the coaching staff. A, you're not going to call your best plays necessarily, and B, you're just not dealing with the top-end talent at this point.